Angus Young, how you doing?
Good, Becko.
The Offspring.
How's it going, Becko?
Dave Grohl, how you going, mate?
Good, man.
Pete, it's been a long time coming.
Oh, Becko, hasn't it indeed?
We go inside the dressing room, speak to the biggest names in music,
Keith Richards and the Rolling Stones.
and crack open their esky.
That's exactly how I imagined you, by the way, sitting opposite me with a vodka and orange.
You're a discerning chap. This is The Rider.
Hey, it's Becko. Welcome back to The Rider, and I certainly wasn't planning on doing another episode for a little while, but it was this afternoon. I think we all were in the same boat. We probably check your phone as you do at the end of the day, and I got a text from a mate who just found out that we'd lost Rob Hirst, the drummer of Midnight Oil, a legendary bloke. I think one of the fittest blokes I've ever met. One of the best drummers Australia has ever produced. Just a genuine great guy. And I was lucky enough to interview him countless times. And he was always genuine, and he stayed in touch. You know, I texted him a couple of times after he announced that he was battling pancreatic cancer, and sadly he lost that battle after 3 years at the age of 70. Rob Hirst. It's a brutal cancer, and he was surrounded by family and friends right till the end. So I wanted to dig out the last chat I had with him back in 2022. It was the lead up to the final Midnight Oil concerts, the final tour. They'd put out some new music as well. They had a brand new bass player, and he was feeling pretty good. And this is February 2022. Another great chat, my final chat with Rob Hirst from Midnight Oil.
Becko, how you going?
Mate, I'm doing well. It's so good to see your face. It's been a while. I think the Hunter Valley was the last time I saw your face in person from a distance. But
Yeah, my face looks better from a distance. Thank you.
Mate, how do you do it after all these years? I mean, you've got to be one of the fittest blokes I've ever seen on stage.
I'm being driven along by our new bass player, Becko, Adam Ventura.
And he's been great. That was the first time I saw him was at that show.
So we've already done 4 shows in Tasmania on the Resist tour, all outdoor shows. And I think by the end of it, the show in Hobart on the Mona lawns there, the museum lawns were, that last one, it really felt like we were locking in again, and can't wait to play the rest of the tour now. I'm having a particularly great time playing with Adam as part of that rhythm section with Midnight Oil. It's really joyful, and his playing reminds me a little bit of the way Peter Gifford used to play as well. So it's, in a way, it's kind of back to the 80s and 90s period with our rhythm section. I'm having a great time.
And that's the thing I love about how you support each other, because I was watching that gig, how he was still the well and truly the new guy at that point, and the communication between you two, and also the support from the crowd. I think everyone just really wanted to see it all work, and it did. It was a great moment.
Yeah, it's great when it locks in again. You feel, okay, we're back, and he's poor guy. His head must be exploding. He's had to learn upwards of 75, 80 songs. You know, we've got a catalogue now of over 200 published songs. So it's a big ask. And they're not easy songs, as you know, Becko. You know, they change gear 4 or 5 times during, and, you know, when there should be 2s and 4s, there's, you know, lots of 3s. And then, of course, Adam is also determined to sing lots of parts as well. Although, having said that, we do have the magnificent voices of Liz Stringer and Leah Flanagan joining us for the entire tour. And we'll have our brass players back as well for the rest of the tour as well, which we didn't have in Tassie. So it'll be the full picture, the full band on stage.
Leah was great at Hunter Valley as well, and I guess at this point, so it's your 13th and final, full length album, and this is your last tour as we know it. Any doubts at this stage? Are you thinking, I maybe it's too soon, or are you comfortable?
No, I think we're all comfortable with this being the last tour. We're a bit disappointed we can't get to WA at the moment, and the Kiwi shows are a little bit up in the air as well. Might have to push them back a little bit later in the year, but we're determined to play to as many people as possible here and maybe overseas if we can get over there, COVID willing. We have fans in Europe and North America, Brazil, even South Africa, other places we'd love to get to. We're going to try to get to as many people as possible, but the main game at the moment is to play to our Australian audience, some of whom, saw the band, dare I say it, back in the late 70s, early 80s, a long time ago.
Yeah, and this album, a lot of comparisons were made, certainly with the Makarrata project and this album too, where they're saying, the Diesel and Dust era, it was rather similar. You went on that great tour, the Blackfella, Whitefella tour, and you went everywhere, and you came back and then went into the studio for Diesel and Dust. And this one, you came off the Great Circle tour, which was something like 77 shows, and you went around the world, and you even went to, I think it was the Big Red Bash, and you did all that stuff, and then went in and recorded all these songs.
Yeah, so it's a joy to get these songs finally out. I got to tell you, it's more than 2 years since we went into a studio in Sydney with our longtime producer, Warren Livesey, to do the 12 songs. Last year we put out the Makarrata project. It was a mini album. And the reason we put that mini album out was that the songwriters in the band were all writing songs about First Nations issues, songs of reconciliation and justice, and particularly focused on the Uluru Statement from the Heart, which is still languishing there. I mean, I got to tell you, mate. I mean, this government will talk until 5 a.m. about religious discrimination bills, but not a murmur about this amazing document, this foundation, this beautiful piece of poetry called The Voice, the Uluru Statement from the Heart. That should be high on the agenda. But anyway, back to the point. On that same recording session, we managed to not only finish the Makarrata songs and release them last year, but finally we've got the Resist album coming out and 12 new songs, and we're going to actually have them on rotation on the Resist tour. In other words, we're going to take a different 3 or 4 every night, so people come and see us multiple times. We'll get to hear a bunch of new songs, plus also the older songs on rotation.
That's great, because a lot of people may not have got to that tour last year, for travel reasons or whatever, and it was really special, and it was emotional, and as you said, you talked about the statement, and that was on the big screen behind you, and as you heard the songs, you could read that and take it in, and I think it'd be great to hear a few of these songs, and of course all the Powder Workers and the Midnight Oil fans, they go to often multiple shows, as you know. Many will probably go to every show.
Yeah, some will. Yeah, we already know they're going to do that. So it's important for us to mix up the sets. And as I said, Adam, our bass player, has just been every evening after rehearsals, he goes back, has dinner, and then he gets stuck into new songs because we keep on throwing new songs. How about, Some Kids, or how about Back on the Borderline, or how about No Reaction, or how about I'm the Cure, And he goes, oh, okay, and he's always incredibly amenable. Okay, come in the next day, and then we play it once. And because he's such a great musician, we can add these songs and mix it up. It's we're really looking forward to it.
That's fantastic. He's obviously got a great work ethic, and I don't think anyone can walk into Midnight Oil and expect to have an easy run. I mean, that's a lot of songs, and you got to have it nailed. And I got to talk about your work ethic because you're a fit bloke, and at the end of the show you give it everything. And I don't know how you do it, but I have to ask you, though, because it is the Rider, this podcast. I've got to ask you, what do you have in your esky behind the drum kit there? What do you have, say, before and after the show?
Well, it's very boring. Sorry to disappoint you. I try to drink gallons of water before I go on because I sweat so much.
Yeah.
And I really feel it if I get not hypothermic, dry.
Dehydrated, yeah.
Thank you. If I get dehydrated, I start to feel giddy, and I might fall off the perch. So there's a few spots in the set where I might be able to sneak around the back and have another drink during the show, and maybe even change one black T-shirt for another black T-shirt.
Yeah.
So I think the shows are lasting average of 2 hours to 2.5 hours because we simply want to cover so much ground, and because it is our last tour, we're aware that there are favourite songs that people have come deliberately to hear, and we want to get around to those as many as possible. So the sets will be long, and we'll be knackered by the end of it. But on the basis of the gigs we've already done in Tassie and the rehearsals, I think the shows, hopefully, will be as strong and angry, I might add, as any oil shows that anyone's ever seen.
Well, you timed it right. I mean, there's going to be obviously an election around May at this stage, so you're well and truly part of the run into to an election. So yeah, I think you got the dates locked in there pretty well.
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, oh God, don't get me started on the election. I mean, God,
yeah.
I mean, really. Look, as you know, Becko, because you've heard the album, a lot of the album is based around climate change and the fact that this is the greatest existential challenge that we face.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't know it, if you looked at actually what the federal government has been doing or not doing. I mean, after the embarrassment of the Glasgow summit, only 10 days after that, the largest liquid natural gas fossil fuel project off the Western Australian coast, the Scarborough project, was announced. And, some people think that that's the equivalent of opening up to 15 new black coal mines. So is this our contribution, really? Is this, I mean, it's got to stop. The contributions to the fossil fuel industry from taxpayers has got to stop. And, we're facing a barrier reef that probably over the summer suffered its third major bleaching event. So I don't know if you've ever been lucky enough to snorkel or dive around the reef, Becko, but
Yeah, I have.
this isn't something that our kids or our grandchildren will have the opportunity to do, and it's been on our watch that we've allowed this to happen, and on our watch that although the Darling River, the Barker, as it's better known now, is full of water at the moment because of the La Nina event. Only a few years ago, millions of dying fish on that, because of water extraction. I mean, no one has been able to tell us yet why on the driest continent on Earth, during increasing drought and climate change, we allow the most water-intensive crops, rice and cotton and almonds, to extract that proportion of water from that river system, with the result that it becomes a dust bowl, in majority of times.
Well, we know about the cotton fields, down the Riverina, and there's rice up in sort of northern Darling up around there, and I know it's crazy. It is crazy, and growing up in the country, I've seen it.
So this, all of these things, of course, bleed into the songwriters and our songs, and so that also galvanizes the live shows as well. As we play these, there'll be a certain amount of angst and venom that we'll bring to bear.
You did Rock on the Reef 5 years ago now, I think it was, and that was an incredible gig. And, of course, famously, the Exxon building. Can we see you come back and perform on the steps of, say, Parliament House or whatever down the track for special moments? Yeah,
obviously we can't give the game away. But
no.
Otherwise,
they'll lock you out, yeah.
Well, yeah, that's right. They'll put an electric fence around wherever we are. But, expect us to pop up somewhere, down the track, yeah. Actually, that protest, we went out there on that atoll off the far north Queensland coast, and it's an atoll that only dries briefly, during the low tide, and we went out there and put that banner up, and that got international interest around the world. I don't think people were aware that the reef was in such peril. And the government, Susan Lee, she went around the world trying to convince folks recently not to put the Great Barrier Reef on the endangered list. I mean, endangered, it's nearly dead, for God's sake. Why would they bother to cover up something like that? Why wouldn't they immediately address the situation and stop allowing the Carmichael Basin and Scarborough and the Browse Basin and all the other massive fossil fuel projects? We've got to do our bit. People say, Australia only contributes a tiny percentage to the problem, but Newcastle is the biggest coal export port in the world. So we export the problem overseas. And
all the way up the Queensland coast as well.
That's right, into Gladstone. That's right.
Into Gladstone. Look, changing tack now, because there's something I've always wanted to ask you, at least since the last interview, and it's a story someone told me, literally only about a year ago, but Paul Hester did a prank on you at one of your gigs many years ago. Paul Hester from Crowded House. He was in the barrel next to your drum kit.
The tank.
And in the tank. Can you tell me about this? Because I've never heard this story from you.
Oh, so I can't actually remember the gig, Becko, but it definitely did happen. Crowdies happened to be in town, wherever it was, at the same time as the oils, some overseas port. And Paul, of course, knew that I used to use the water tank as part of the drum solo in Power and Passion. So I think we must have been playing Power and Passion, and halfway through the song, I'm aware that there's someone else playing along. I look around, and it appears to be someone inside my water tank. And then as I'm looking around, I see Paul's head come up above the tank, that beautiful cheeky face of his, and he's playing. Somehow the crew managed to get him up inside the tank without me noticing. And so he played the solo from inside the tank.
Oh, that's amazing. And that's commitment, by the way, as well, because he's obviously waited through probably most of the show. And it's probably hot in the tank as well.
Yeah. Well, he did quite a few favours. Once I was really crook and I couldn't play a show in Adelaide, and Hesse was down there. Hesse came and actually played the show, poor guy. And, Crowdies play more of a pop show, and Paul was a fantastic drummer. So it was probably a bit unfair to make him play 2 hours with the kind of intensity.
Yeah.
But I went and saw him the next morning at the hotel in Adelaide, and knocked on his door, and he was sitting on the bed, and the whole bed was covered with bandages. he was taping up all the fingers on both hands he'd lost skin. Actually, such was his commitment to finishing that show. So what an amazing guy.
That's amazing. And deep down you were like, yeah, that's what it takes,
A little bit of schadenfreude. That's
exactly right. So you've done some big gigs. I mentioned Exxon before, and of course, Goat Island, I think, is one of the most iconic moments. Oils on the Water, and even Armistice Day, one of the most recent ones at the Domain. What is the all-time greatest gig in your head after all these years?
Oh God, so many, Becko.
Yeah, it's a real tough one because it's a lot of years of touring, and often, touring up and down the pubs as well, and it's hard to narrow it down. But
Midnight Oil spent quite a lot of time in Europe, and we've got strong audiences in Germany, France, Holland, Sweden, Switzerland, Belgium, blah, blah. But we hardly ever went to the East. But on that tour, we went to, a few years back, we went to a place called Ostrava, which is in the Czech Republic, and it's way over near the Polish border. And we played to an audience that I think many of them had never seen the band. They'd heard about the band. They might have got hold of our albums. And the gig was actually in a decommissioned old industrial plant, steelworks, but it was all rusting, and it actually looks like a Midnight Oil film clip. It was perfect,
Yeah.
And we were on at dusk, and the perfect spot, just at sundown, and we only had an hour. It's all you ever get on a European festival show. There's a bit of footage of it somewhere, but it's one of those nights where it was just quite a moment. It was a moment of epiphany for the band to play after all these years to an Eastern European audience, and for people that have been waiting for so many years, decades even, for us to actually make the journey that far east. And I remember coming off stage and Pete and I looking at each other going, yeah, that was something. And so that's one that comes to mind. But there's others, there's the moment of the time that we first managed to play in South Africa at the end of apartheid.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because our albums, we'd actually boycotted South Africa and restricted the sale of our albums during the apartheid period in South Africa. But I think apartheid ended 93, 94 there, and we went. But prior to that, we'd been invited, but you had to go and play at Sun City or one of those terrible places, and we refused to do that. So by the time we got there, there was this amazing spirit in the air in South Africa, and we played 3 shows. We played in Durban, Cape Town, and Johannesburg. And the Johannesburg show was particularly amazing because the organisers had bussed in a whole lot of folks from the townships, from Soweto and elsewhere. And so it was a huge mixed audience that knew all the songs, sang a lot better than us, I got to add. Amazing. I mean,
Wow.
South Africans can sing.
Yeah, yeah.
Once again, it's captured on film. It's out there somewhere. But we had Charlie McMahon on Didgeridoo there, and he used to have this thing where he'd send firecrackers from the edge of his didgeridoo into the crowd.
No way.
But the South African cops thought that someone was shooting at the stage, so they all drew, and so we thought, oh, great, we're going to be shot. But incredible lineup. You remember Johnny Clegg? He's no longer with us, but incredible South African performer and dancer. He was on the bill, as was Sting. So it was an incredible afternoon of music, and so that's another one which, really was something.
So, you got some incredible local acts on your tour this time around, supporting. And one thing you all have always done is lift up those very deserving young artists. But is there still someone you want to have on the bill with you that you can't quite get? Is there someone even internationally that you'd love to perform with? I mean, like Sting?
Yeah, it'd be great to have Springsteen and the E Street Band support us. Yeah.
Oh, well, I know you're a fan,
Yeah, unlikely. I met drummer Max Weinberg from the E Street Band on the last Springsteen tour, and I met them all as such lovely people, apart from being great musicians. I mean, they've been around for longer than us even, and they've done everything, and they're very strong politically, as you know. They're on the side of the Angels, and Max was so accommodating. He in the sound check, he said, "Come and play my drums," and I went up and played his beautiful DW drum kit up there, and sits way up high above the band, and so yeah, they can support us anytime. But I'm more likely we would support them, I would say.
Well, I've got regrets too. I went to Little Steven's gig, I don't know, like 3 years ago, and I didn't know Pete was coming up towards the end of the show, and it was one of those days. I think I just had a long day, and I got to about 3/4 of the way through the gig, and I went, you know what, I better call it a night. I got to go home. And I log on the next morning and find out that Pete has taken the stage with Little Steven on stage. It would have been just amazing. And
so they must have done Sun City, which of course Little Steven produced all those years ago as an anti-apartheid anthem.
Yeah, right.
Pete featured in the film clip and the song.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, there you go.
So that would have been, I imagine that's the song they would have done.
Now, do you feel like this is the perfect way to wrap up the band as we know it? I mean, especially with the loss of Bones, which obviously came as a shock for all of us.
Yeah, we miss Bones terribly, as a person, as a musician, and as an incredible vocalist, singer. In many ways, this album and tour is dedicated to Bonesy. It's the last album he played on before we lost him. And I think that he would appreciate the fact that we're going out finally to play these songs that he recorded with us 2 years ago, going out and playing them live. So it's a tribute to him in a way, this tour. But we also, I guess we never want to be one of those bands that just sort of just kept on playing the old material, the hits. We know that it works, and we know everyone's waiting for those songs. And don't get me wrong, we will be playing a lot of back catalogue and well-known songs, but we also didn't want to be a band that went out without new material. We wanted to we want to be still tough and relevant. And the songs, I think, are, and I think people will really enjoy the new album. There are a few slower songs, but even the slower songs are very tightly wound. They're a lot full of tension and anger, and we're not going softly into the night, that's for sure.
Yeah, there was a moment on the Hunters gig. Was it Lucky Country that the one where he does the vocal solo sort of
Yes.
as the outro?
One Country, yeah.
One Country, and when that came on, I shed a tear because I think that's the moment of me saying goodbye to him in the crowd, and I'm really glad you guys are using this tour as a goodbye to him, but also a goodbye to the fans as well. They've been there since the Antler at Narrabeen, and I think everyone's very excited. Impossible to
replace Bonesy, but we have Liz and Leah doing all of Bonesy's difficult harmonies. I used to have Bonesy really loud in my wedge, and I would always tune to him because every night he would hit the note right on without fail, never out of tune.
Yeah,
it's fantastic, and they do the same. So we're covering that area because apart from being a loud guitar band, we've also got all these strong harmonies and things that we have in our music.
Yeah, you do.
And you can't do without those.
I wanted to ask you about the Antler at Narrabeen right at the beginning of the band. And if you go to any Oils fan, that's the time they always talk about. You know, the sweaty beer garden, the condensation dripping from the roof. What made that era so special?
That was the age of the sticky carpet cowboys.
Yeah.
Because there just didn't seem to be any regulations back then. I mean, people would have licenses for venues and then they'd put in 10 times the number. And no one seemed to worry too much, you know. It was quite gladiatorial. There's a good book by Mark Seymour, 13 Ton Theory. He talks about it, how, you know, all the bands of that era, the late 70s and 80s, had to get bigger and bigger PAs because as the pub crowds got bigger and bigger, it was a question of who would win and, you know, the Christians or the Lions. And so we ended up carting around these huge PAs and got really loud. But we were on the same circuit. And I must say it was a fantastic circuit to be on, that late 70s, early 80s circuit, along with bands like Rose Tattoo and Cold Chisel, The Angels, My Sex, Dragon, Mentals, Jimmy and the Boys. There was this, and, you know, we would never see, as musicians, we would never see all those musicians until years later because we were always in a different port at a different time, you know.
Would have. Yeah, of course.
But that's all that anyone ever, I mean, Punters, that was before dance music, that's before fire and noise regulations closed all these amazing beer barns down. And that's where all these bands learned to play, you know, in the wake of Akadaka, who were kind of our heroes starting out, you know. And that's why bands, when, like ourselves, when we finally did go overseas, we were so kind of road tough and put on these really strong live shows.
Well, look, it's been a journey, and people use that term a lot, but it really has been. And we're very excited to have the album out, the 13th and final album, Resist, from Midnight Oil. Rob Hirst, thanks so much for your time, and I can't wait to catch up again soon.
Yeah, same, Becko. Thanks for the interview, mate. Talk soon.